Katie, how impressed were you with Jonbon, and can he bridge the gap with El Fabiolo?
Visually, I thought he was very impressive. His jumping was brilliant. He travelled well, and the lid looked like it was stayed on him throughout the race. But I have a feeling he might have left his race there on Sunday. He won by what 9, 10 lengths. First time out. He could have. It could be just. I don't know. In my opinion, I won't be surprised if he left his race there on Sunday.
Well, that'll be big because he's currently 3s on for the Tingle Creek, and I believe Henry de Bromhead is very keen to go with Captain Guinness. Now, Jonbon beat Captain Guinness last year, but if Jonbon's had an unnecessarily hard race, well, we're all waxing lyrical about this great ride from Nico de Boinville, and it must be frustrating for Nico. You're stable jockey to Nicky Henderson, and you barely get to ride any of these JP horses. Although, to be fair, he wasn't getting off Constitution Hill for Jonbon at any point. But
no, that's true.
While Aidan Coleman is on the sidelines and currently out of action, and while Mark Walsh was busy in Navan, then suddenly Nico is very, very useful and one of the best jockeys in the weighing room. But I hadn't thought of that. Is this going to turn out to be too hard a race going forward? Because it's unusual for Nicky even to be this forward at the Cheltenham Open meeting. Normally Newbury is when he's really kicking into full gear, but he had his team absolutely purring over the weekend. That's a very interesting angle. In terms of the current 2-mile chasing division, I mean, look, we're looking at last year's Arkle 1-2, even money and 11-4, and then it's any price you want. So as the season goes on, let's say he's fine and no one should overreact and everything's okay and he'll build on this. How much of a threat to El Fabiolo is he, Katie?
Well, to be honest, we have to see El Fabiolo out and see what he does. But Willie's needing their first run anyway. So whatever he does first run, he's always going to improve. And a lot of Willies are going to do that. I wouldn't be worried about any of Willie's getting beaten first time out. I think it's actually a good thing to see them getting beaten and needing the run, because you know there's going to be improvement there. But you see a lot of these horses winning easily first time out. You can argue how much improvement is there to be made when they're winning so easily first time out. You know, you'd nearly rather see them need the run because you know they're going to improve. But I just wonder, with Jonbon, that race he had was going to be a tough race. Can he improve off that again? El Fabiolo is probably going to have a run, need the run, but he's going to improve off what he does.
Yeah, it's also going to be interesting how they go about it. So as I understand it, El Fabiolo is going to take an Ergamine spot in the Hilly Way. Yeah. And let's assume that he's given the same preparation as last. Let's assume he's given the Energamine prep. So he himself had 2 runs before Cheltenham last year. Well, so did an Ergamine. So let's say that that's what Willie decides to do again. He goes for the Hilly Way chase, then something like the Dublin chase at the DRF, or maybe comes over to England, but probably the Dublin chase. And then he's in the Champion chase. Well, if that's the case, by the time these 2 horses rematch, they'll have raced. El Fabiolo will have raced 3 times since they met in the Arkle. Punchestown, Hilly Way, DRF. It'll be 5 for Jonbon, because he went to Aintree, then Sandown for the Celebration Chase, where he beats Captain Guinness. He's won the Shloer. He's going for the Tingle Creek, and he'll probably go for the Clarence House Game Spirit. So both of you spend a lot of time around high caliber, high quality horses. George, you have been around and been involved in the training of a champion chaser. So can Jonbon find the necessary improvement he needs? And are those 2 races going to be the key factor? Because I was really taken about how Nicky Henderson was talking to Lydia Hislop on Racing TV. And you both know I'm a fully paid up member of the El Fabiolo fan club and was absolutely adamant that he would crush Jonbon last year. But I am taken with how he's talking about him this year, that wasn't right. He wasn't the right. I don't see any excuse, by the way, for the Arkle defeat. But Nicky is saying to Lydia Hislop on Racing TV, that was not really the Jonbon, and you'll see a different horse. So with those 2 extra starts between now and the Champion Chase, can he turn it around, or is this just El Fabiolo's world and we're all living in it? George?
So it's entirely possible we could turn it around. Like, say, this is early days in a chaser's career. You know, we're talking about a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, but The thing that, to be honest, made me join the El Fabiolo camp last year was just, well, the fact that he had more graded form over fences, and B, that he just had less runs in his life. And so potentially by the time they get to Cheltenham, Jonbon will have had 10 chase starts. El Fabiolo will have had 7. So while Jonbon could improve, it's very possible El Fabiolo could improve more. And like Kate was saying just then, actually, it is possible that while we're all very impressed on Sunday, that could be as good as he can do. Particularly, we're saying about Nicky Henderson being in form particularly early. He's actually got currently a 67% runners to form percentage, and last 14 days he's got a strike rate of 36%, which we're not used to seeing from him at all this time of year. Like this. It's sort of unheard of, really. In fact, it's quite a pain for the rest of us, like to have our horses up early and ready to go, because normally we can beat the Nicky horses early. We can't beat them by much.
Damn you, Nicky! Damn you for trying, Nicky!
It is a concern, but there's no reason that he couldn't go first time out, be fit, wound up, ready to go, then go to the Tingle Creek, and then maybe just have a little break over Christmas and go again. Like a lot of the big yards are doing that now, like a little sort of 3-week break around January, February, and then you don't bring them back in all over again. Like they're still pretty fit, but it's just a little refresher. So you're able to sort of have, rather than train them hard through the whole season, you can essentially freshen them up and go again. Rather than their form tailing off, you can maintain it. But I imagine that would be what Nicky's thinking if he is as fit as he looks right now.
So the additional experience, can that swing things in Jonbon's way, or is this all about El Fabiolo going forward, Katie?
I just think we need to see what if he's trained on to open company. Is the big we've seen Jonbon and we've seen he sparkled on debut. But how is El Fabiolo going to transition from the novice ranks to the it's a big step, you know. And I think once you see him on his first appearance, there'll be more of an argument. But we don't know how El Fabiolo is trained on. We've seen what Jonbon's done, but how do we know if El Fabiolo has stepped out into this open company? I think until I see them both have the first run, it'd be easier to judge off that and compare what they've done.
Yeah, and we're not really going to learn a whole lot about him in the Hilly Way other than, oh, he's alive. No. Great.
Yeah.
It'd be the same as Alaho the other day. Oh, great, he's alive. Right. We can build on
that.
That's
the big thing. That's when you actually see them on the track and they're running. That's the big thing as well.
It is useful to know. Oh, great. Yeah. He's alive. Fantastic. Yeah. We can build on that. That's all right. We can put him back in the tracker. All right. Captain Guinness won the Fortria Chase at Navan. Beats Riviere de Tel. It was great to see her get round. Dice Dynamo was sent off odds on favourite, which I can't quite get my head around. Decent enough comeback from Saint Roy. Apparently, Ryanair route for him for the rest of the season. We shall see how that pans out. But I thought this was a nice comeback from Captain Guinness, and I believe that Tingle Creek is very much in the next step. That was certainly what Henry was saying before the race, and I have no reason to think that they wouldn't now go for it afterwards. George, what did you make of it?
Yeah, no, I think, to be honest, he did what I pretty much expected him to do. I thought he was far the best horse in this race, but you've still got to go out there and do it. I don't think there are many 2-mile chases who are better on the heavy than Captain Guinness. He's a great and very, very consistent racehorse. Like you said, it was great to see Riviere de Tel. I would say she's run right back up to her best.
Yeah.
Dice Up Dynamo. It was a little disappointing to see him settle so well and still finish so weakly. That's what I would say about him. Is there was always an excuse for why he was getting tired late in his races before, but he settled away beautiful there. And you could argue that at various points in the race, people tried to put a bit of pressure on him, but nothing like the pressure he was putting on himself when he was running so free before. So it was really disappointing to see him sort of stop so quickly after the last. And Sam Roy looked like he's run well, but he looked like he needed it a bit, and I tend to expect that from him first time out. He's never quite at his best first time of asking, but he is a graded horse on his day, which tends to be in the spring. So I'd be very happy. And certainly if Captain Guinness did rock up to Sandown and the ground got really bad, if Jonbon turned up, he might have a chance of beating him. But I think if it got heavy at Sandown, I'm not, knowing what we know about Nicky, I'm not sure Jonbon would show up.
Well, I would have agreed with that. In fact, Nicky was very much the guy who wanted to wrap his horse in cotton wool, and that's all he wanted to do. Like, it was almost as though Nicky needed an excuse to run his horses, as opposed to every other trainer who's looking for an excuse not to run. And I wonder if something changed, because I don't know. I'm starting to think that that's not the way it is anymore. I think he's becoming a bit braver, or he's reverting back to Nicky of old.
But Sandown heavy is a different ballgame altogether, isn't it? If there's any of the old Nicky in there, or sort of the Nicky we've become used to seeing, if it's heavy at Sandown, that's the one place you are going to pull them out, isn't it? And where's the place he pulled out? Was it Altior pulled out last minute?
Oh, that happened twice at least, and he drifted like a barge on the exchanges beforehand both times as well. Allegedly,
the ground was heavy when it was down as good to soft in places, was it?
Yeah, none of that.
And he had already won Grade 1s on soft heavy in places.
It left a real sour taste. That did. None of that came across well at all. Yeah. All right, back to Captain Guinness to give him his crowning glory. Like this is a really nice performance on his comeback, Katie. And if you're right, and if Jonbon's had a really hard race, an unnecessarily hard one, you could argue, then Captain Guinness is a very viable alternative to him. He will make him work for it in the Tingle Creek.
Yeah, I think it was a really good performance, and it's actually great to see a horse like him come back to the best, because a horse like he's obviously had a few problems along the way, and he hasn't been the easiest to train. But it's good to see him bounce back to what he's shown in his previous runs. However, I do think Willie's needing a run, so that probably he benefited from that. Dysart Dynamo, I think he has lost his way a little bit from his novice hurdling days. I'm not really quite sure what is going on, but there's something quite not right with him, and I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it, and he probably will bounce back again at some point, but he didn't look anywhere near what he did go back in 2 seasons ago. St. Roy just looked like he needed the run, and Riviera itself, she actually ran well. I think she's been quite difficult to train, so it's kind of it was an odd race to pick out and try and divulge where these horses will end up on the next run, because there probably may not have been that much strength and depth to the race looking at it. But if he did go over to Tingle Creek, I do think he could put it up to Jonbon anyway, going off that run, and it would have been a good confidence boost for him to come home in front as well.
Yeah, very much so. And he's a very, very good horse on his day. Yeah. We did do some speed figures, and look, I used to scoff at these and speed figures. Who cares? Captain Guinness is unsurprisingly would leave you a little bit underwhelmed in comparison to Jonbon's. But the most interesting thing about Jonbon is this is the first time he's clocked a speed figure that is as good as El Fabiolo, and it's actually identical to El Fabiolo's Arkle win. The thing about that is El Fabiolo is still a year younger, and if Jonbon has improved, then ipso facto El Fabiolo should have as well. So when these two meet up in the champion chase, El Fabiolo should absolutely blow him to pieces. Or maybe Nicky is right. He wasn't quite right last year, and it's all going to turn around. I'm still in the El Fabiolo fan club, but we'll see how the season continues for both. It's going to be interesting to see particularly how the Tingle Creek pans out.